Hey everybody, it's Matt with Flyin Miata. Welcome back to our next FM live episode, and today we're going to be talking about the rear braces we offer for the rear subframes. We call this the cannon brace. Why is it called the cannon brace? I honestly had no idea, so I had to ask around. Turns out we have a very long time loyal friend customer named Skip Cannon. He purchased a brace way back in the NA6 days when that was the only option Mazda had for the MX-5. He purchased the rear brace. It came in a kind of a sheet metal, very flimsy design. He installed it on his car. Didn't like the performance, so he drew up his own design that was more structural. And his buddy had a mill. He produced one as a prototype. Skip really liked the improvements it applied to the suspension and handling, so they made a few more. It turns out it was a really big success, and maybe more success than Skip initially wanted. Then he couldn't go do the things that he preferred, possibly drive the car. So FM purchased the design from Skip, and now we call this the cannon brace after Skip Cannon. Makes sense now. Nice little history lesson, there you go. So why do you need this and how to install it? Let's cover what it fits first. This fits all the NA NB chassis except 92 through 97. And I will cover that on the install a little bit later. It will fit those years, but there's some modifications that you'll need to do, and it's up to you to decide if it's worth it or not. So this brace, more on the fitment, sorry. It fits with obviously all factory components, exhaust, differentials. If you have an aftermarket exhaust like our 3-inch exhaust, it will fit with that. If you have another manufacturer's exhaust, sorry, I really can't answer that. As long as it's in the same area as the factory location exhaust, then it should fit. For differentials, we haven't had any issues with factory components on this, so the factory differential doesn't interfere with this brace. If you're running a V8 conversion and you have a git drag, sorry, we haven't tested that theory either, so that'll be up to you to decide. Okay, so why do you need it? This brace triangulates the rear of the subframe. So this is the mount where your lower sway bar nuts are, studs come out, and this is where the lower control pivot point is. So for the early NA6s, there were no factory braces here like you'll see today, and the more modern ones, the ladder brace. So it was all floppy in this area. Compression and rebound of your suspension moved this lower pivot point and change the geometry of the car, which will cause unsettling behavior, doesn't make the driver very comfortable, even in a road application. So it's designed for NA6 specifically. You can use it on your NBs. The improvement on handling probably isn't as great, simply because the factory design with the more advanced braces down here was better. So you don't see the severe differences between not having any braces and then adding one. So, and speaking of adding a brace, this doesn't replace any factory braces or our FM braces. It just is an additional for rigidity. So you shouldn't decide, should I get the frame braces, the frame, what are they called, Kyle? Frame braces.
Butterfly frame
brace. And the butterfly brace or this. It's an additional, it's not an except. So, covered those things. Let's see. Notes. I think we're there. Geometry schools, yes, we were there. So, why is there a hole here? This is a nice design so that you don't have to remove your mid-pipe and muffler to slide this brace up between the two components. So you leave this loose, your exhaust is here, you slip it through, maybe you can see that way better, and then attach this brace while it's on the car so you don't have to break that connection. And I think we can probably show you how it installs now, if you want to follow me. So the only bolts we need to loosen up are 4 bolts. 2 upper, which are going to be your lower nut on your sway bar, and then the rear lower control arm bolt here. Before you loosen this one, everybody knows, or should know, that these are eccentric bolts, and you need to mark them before you loosen this bolt. We don't much want to mark this one because the cannon brace is going to cover it up. So this is the same washer on this side. You'll want to mark the forward side of this, just to have a reference when installing the brace. These are nice and loose because I'm smart and I don't want you guys to see me fight. Oh. Guess what? There's 2 more on this side. All right. So we don't want to install the bar until we get past the exhaust. Make sure that we have this the right direction. We want the machined area towards the rear on the lower side. So it slips in there nice and easy. There's one exception. It's a little too nice. So I know this because I've done this a few times. The bar. When you try to install it, once you install the brace, you can't reach these 2 bolts because they're in the way of the subframe. So if you follow our instructions, it says get this through the exhaust and then attach this bar and tighten all the bolts up. At that time, you're not hiding it at a later date. So let's just pretend I did that because I didn't bring the attaching hardware with me. So one more time, back on the car. So when you are tightening the upper nut for the sway bar, that needs to be no more than 20 foot-pounds, or it possibly could break. There's a lot of age on these things and possibly rust. The lower one, the book specs at 70 foot-pounds. I'm going to say tighten that up at least to 70, possibly more. These are known to slip occasionally, even in the factory scenario, and track conditions worsen this. So you want to have some good leverage on your bar there. I think we had a question, will this help on my NV? I went over that a little bit. For a street application, like I mentioned before, you're not going to notice it as much, but I think if you're in a track application, all these little additions would help in a track scenario. So I think it would be worth it if you're heavily autocross or track the car. So right now, I'm thinking I forgot most of my questions, so Kyle's going to help me out there.
Okay, how does it change the handling characteristics as well as road comfort? Specific to impacts, noise, vibration, harshness.
Gotcha. So handling characteristics I already covered on the geometry. It keeps the geometry as designed from the factory. Road impacts. I don't see how this would cause any NVH or harshness, which is NVH, for the driver. It's simply keeping the chassis rigid as, I suppose, designed by the manufacturer. It's just they forgot a couple of important things in the very beginning. So.
Will you need longer rear alignment bolts?
So the question was, will you need longer rear alignment bolts? That's a very good question. And you can use your stock alignment bolts, and there's plenty of thread engagement. I don't have this torqued down yet, and we all know that's a locking nut. So we have still some room to tighten it down before we get into the locking mechanism and have full thread engagement there.
Does this brace prevent premature rear subframe failure in any way?
So does the brace prevent premature subframe failure? I wasn't aware of Mazda having a subframe failure, so if that's happening to you, maybe ask your buddies if you actually drive as you think you drive. Maybe jumping curbs isn't intended purposes for Miatas. So,
Does this function the same way as a PPF brace, like made by Beat Rush?
does this function as the same as the PPF brace? No, it doesn't. This strengthens the suspension chassis. I think the PPF brace is a product that I don't know why it's designed, honestly. I know where it goes. The PPF brace here is going to affect the connection between the differential and the transmission, and I don't see that as a suspension component. So,
do we know if there's a stiffness percentage over having no brace or having an OE single bar?
so the question is, do we have nerdy specs on this? No, we don't. We do have nerdy specs on our frame rail braces and butterfly brace. We didn't do that specifically for the Cannon brace. Maybe if we ever get snowed in and we have extra time, we could do that. I don't see it in the foreseeable future. The NA6 guys can feel the difference in the driver's seat, and well, that's good enough for me. So,
And are the instructions available on the FM site?
are the instructions available on the FM site? I looked at them under our product description and they seem to be missing. So they shall be soon. And if they aren't there quick enough for you, we can definitely send them via email. So sorry about the delay there. We are revamping some website development, so that's probably why they're missing.
And I think you hit the other points through your spiel.
Hey, Kyle says I'm all good to sign off. If you have more questions that I didn't cover, please let us know. Tabs down below or simply an email. Feel free to call us at any time. Hope you like the Cannon brace. Thanks so much for Skip for his design and development of this. It's a great product that we're happy to sell. So remember, Thursday, 2 o'clock, we'll be talking about something important that we haven't came up with yet. So hope to see you there. Have a good day.